Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Before we get into the Q&A this week, we have a couple of announcements to go over. Number one, the final month of the year is coming up, December. That's my birth month, and over on Twitch, I'm going to be hosting the Summer, where basically I'm going to be having a whole bunch of punishments / rewards that the stream can earn by supporting the channel, and I'm going to have a link to like an Imgur page that has all the stuff that I'll be doing over there. So if you're someone who has been by the stream before, wants to come by the stream, or have never and just want to check it out at some point, well, I do also stream on YouTube, and you're more than welcome to, of course, to always join me over there. Of course, on the Twitch side, we will be doing that entire event focused around the support. I'm actually going to be moving into a new house soon with Sophie, so I'd like to have a pretty decent month when it comes to that entire thing I've got going on. Number two, this isn't really sponsored. It is, but it isn't. On the Twitch side, I've also been doing a Cook Unity sponsor. It's one of those meal prep boxes, but it's one of the ones where they ship you like the pre-cooked meal, and they have like a bunch of chefs that contribute towards it. One of them, funnily enough, was Esther Choi. For those Uncle Roger fans, Uncle Esther, which I thought was pretty interesting to see. I just didn't expect this. I was scrolling through to see her on there. But it's one of those, like, on the first week, you get like 50% off of the box. And then the subsequent weeks 2, 3, and 4, you get 10% off. And for each week that someone, if they buy it through my link and get the discount supports it, I actually get a little bit extra on top of what I'm already being paid to do it. They only paid me to do that on the Twitch side, but I feel like it would be remiss of me to not bring it up over here. It is a US-based thing, and, you know, if you're in the US and you're looking for 50% off a bunch of food, I don't know about you, but whenever I do the meal prep kit stuff, like I did do some of them like really consistently for years. That actually helped me get into cooking. But when it comes to like the pre-prepared ones, I'm a big rotator. Like if I'm going to do it at all, you do one, get the discount, rotate to another one, get the discount, then the other one wants back. So they give you, I mean, I think some of y'all know the game here, but if you want to give that a shot, it's 50% off. They got plenty of meals. And while they're not paying me for this sponsored ad, I just figured I would throw this into the weekly Q&A because why not? I will have a Magic Spoon ad this month, just not on this video. But anyway, those are the two announcements I wanted to do. Be sure to join me on the Twitch stream for the Desubmer thing. We've got a bunch of stuff that's on there that should be a good time. And if you want to try out Cook Unity and you're in the US, it directly supports the channel as well. I am being paid directly just for even advertising it on the Twitch side, but for anyone who signs up, I get extra. So like I said, might as well just shout it out. With that, let's get into the Q&A. I did not check ahead to see how many there are, so let's find out. All right, first question, hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Good day. Good day. All of the job talk reminded me when my wife asked me what change Square Enix can make to my main. Red mains would make me immediately abandon the job. I said removal of the melee combo. I know you play whatever is needed, but I was wondering what changes to your mains would make you dump the whole job. Here's the thing. I play what's needed, and because of that, I can only ever really be upset at the changes to one job, and that's Monk. And it's a job I don't even play. And I've been generally a pretty big fan of what they've done with Monk through most of its eras, but even if they've fumbled here and there. Like 5.4 Monk, I thought was going to feel terrible, and it felt really good. But I was worried that it was too simple and that 6.0 wouldn't adequately build on the new identity it was trying to carve out for itself. I still think, you know, post 6.0 Monk is like one of my favorite jobs that we've had. I think Stormblood Monk is still technically better, but I consider it a successful overall rework. I don't really miss the positionals so much as they're still ingrained into my muscle memory. And I'd be okay with getting them back. I play as if I still have all the positionals anyway. So honestly, while the job functionally doesn't need them, my muscle memory kind of keeps it alive in spirit, I suppose. And then the chakras and everything, I think also have just worked really well. So Monk would have to, I can't think of a specific change. I thought positionals being removed from Monk would have been that change, but they proved to me in that particular instance that what I had associated with the job, the Grease Lightning stacks, the positionals, all that stuff, what I thought I had associated with the job and would kill it if it was gone, ended up not being that big a deal to me after I experienced what was new at the end of it, which is why the job identity thing is even more interesting to me, because it really goes to show I never asked for any of that stuff and I really enjoyed it. That doesn't mean that that's a good thing and they should just kind of completely flip the script on a bunch of jobs, but it means that while there are some reworks that I think could have been successful and they haven't been supported adequately enough to make them successful, like Summoner, I've also seen reworks like Monk that didn't give me something I even thought I wanted, but ended up giving me something I loved. So I know that's not really the answer to the question, but unfortunately it's because, like I said, the answer already happened. I thought removing positionals from Monk was going to be the thing that did it for me, and all of the buff maintenance, upkeep, and stuff. I thought that those were what I liked, but it's really the aesthetic and the punching and the kicking and how it feels to go through your combos and the more dynamic feel that it has, which it still has in essence, if you ask me. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hiya, Haps. Hi. I would love to see hard mode dungeons come back. I always like the way they tied content together, like Tamtar with Palace of the Dead and Stone Vigil going into more Heavensward stuff. Their design also having more puzzles in them with both fights design or just the dungeon itself. I'd like to see this implemented as extra content to free what they want to do. So how do I put this? I'm not in the camp of someone who wants more traditional dungeons, but I would be okay with it if they determined that it was something that more people wanted than didn't want, right? Like, I really enjoy going through dungeons the first time, seeing the lore, seeing the story. And sometimes, obviously I'm also going to be doing things like judging the boss and whatnot. Like, I like to do that. But the thing is dungeons are one of those, like, they're kind of almost always a one-time experience for me. You don't see me doing roulettes very often. So how do I put this? I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where you said they don't need to be like normal dungeons in a sense. Like I would be in that same boat. But that being said, with what they've done with VNC, like let's say they wanted to revisit a dungeon and do its hard mode as a VNC style dungeon, they really need to support those types of dungeons being more repeatable and being more long-term rewarding before I would want them to take this route with those. So if we like in the VNC, let's say in the VNC Finder itself, we actually were to get a what's it called? A roulette, for example, where any VNC dungeon, you can get it in the roulette and it can like set you on a path, or you can queue for it individually and you can pick any path. So, because you can think of it this way, even if you do the VNC dungeons and it sets you on a path, it still means every time you do it, you're not doing the exact same dungeon or in the exact same order or even uncovering the exact same story bits. It also means that if you're not really dedicated towards finding the specific paths, that you can still kind of get some more life out of it. It becomes a better leveling experience. And the new one will allow leveling in it, but you have to queue individually for it. And I think what it comes down to is wanting them to better connect the alternative features like VNC Finder with the main duty finder, which is something people want for Delubrum. That's something people want for places like Fort Tower, which I know are inside of a zone, but like these things that are separated from the duty finder itself that make them kind of harder to become engaged with them. I would want them to better support those systems first, and then we could explore something like this, because I really think 14 is at its best when it introduces something that, yes, if you're like me and the one-time experience is all you really need, great. That's not a problem. But for the people who do enjoy making that part of their daily routine, they feel as if they're getting something that they can look forward to whenever they play like on the daily or they do roulettes with friends or whatnot. And I think that's when 14 is at its best, when they're consistently providing that type of experience to the player and not just the one-off and never do it again experience. Hashtag Mondays with Happy Mister. Hi, Haps. Hi, hope you're doing well. I have a couple questions. How can hardcore raiders stay focused for 12 plus hours a day despite being tired? How do you personally deal with being tired during hardcore prog? You have to keep in mind that in a 12 plus hour day, it is not playing with literally no breaks, no food, no rest across the 12 hours. People take time to get up. Sometimes people take walks around the block to get their blood flowing. Sometimes people get up and do push-ups. Sometimes people get up and eat something, and they make sure they're eating things that aren't just junk or crap. They're not getting sugar highs and sugar lows. They're not getting, they're getting an adequate amount of caffeine if they intake it. They're making sure to wash their face and do their usual daily routine that kind of dictates to their body that, hey, they're just like, it's a normal day. It's not about playing for 12 hours straight or 16 hours straight. It's about how do you maintain your individual health across a period of time where you are doing the same task. It doesn't mean literally no life, 12 hours, blah, 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 across, just one single sitting. And I think a lot of people could practice that more regularly outside of those things. Because like plenty of people can sit down and play a video game for 12 hours straight. And yes, there's that sense of progression. You know, they get to the next part of the story. They get to experience the next thing. A fight is not too inherently different. You know, yeah, you could, you know, bash your head against the wall for 12 hours and make no progress, and that feels bad. But generally speaking, you're moving forward little by little and, you know, getting a little better or making it to the next mechanic or something. That's kind of that same vibe. It's just about actually taking care of yourself health-wise and being prepared to do that for multiple days in a row. But if people are so tired that progress cannot be made, it's also important to recognize that and go, okay, we're done for the day. That's it. There's really nothing else to it. And then you go, we'll come back tomorrow rested, and make sure you sleep, make sure you study if you need to, make sure you eat something good, you know, nourishing, filling fruits, just not anything heavy that would make you sleepy, you know, like dense pastas or turkeys and that tryptophan involving stuff. So it is a lot about taking a conscious effort to stay healthy during a long raid period, and across multiple days. And that's really all it is. It's just being conscious and being healthy. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Haps, hi, hope life is treating well. We're doing good. With the potential of a new physical range in 8.0, better be a new phys range. Not potential, better be. Just wondering what your current thoughts on the role and jobs were and how the job identity potential, even new job, could change that. It's funny, because we've been doing a lot of criticism style videos, I'm actually going to be doing something that's, I'm not going to call it the reverse of that, but it's a lot of looking at what actually is already working now and how I'd like to double down on it. And that's obviously going to start with the phys range role. I'll give you a bit of the TLDR. I think Dancer has the best job identity currently across all of the phys range. The actual act of doing the dance every 30 seconds, every 2 minutes, it feels very unique to the job. It has a unique sort of power trough where you're deliberately not doing any sort of offensive action for several seconds on end to end with a big hit that buffs your allies. Dance partner is a very unique thing that actually does make you consider job composition, who you're giving it to, the quality of the player, and does have a bit of expression. And can you swap it mid-fight? Is somebody better during this period? There's a lot of skill expression, micro skill expressions involved. There's also the addition of the support. They have a channeled shield that gets stronger over time that has a regen. They have an AoE heal that only works when players are stacked up. There's a lot of area control around the dancing. And then I'll even say that while Bard has become less and less proc-based, I know it's not because the songs all have procs, but like it's not like it was back in the day with the procs and the dots, you know, the dots critting being the main source. And, you know, it's like Bloodletter and Ballad feels really good. And yes, having a few extra OGCDs during your burst feels good, and then the other one just speeds you up. But the whole like dance into enhanced dance into fan dance thing, or saving your fan dances for you know, more important things. There's a lot of micro skill expression that isn't just kind of going through the motions, but they've also got skills that are more in line with that, like, you know, flourish now giving you absolutely everything, and they're just being follow-ups to stuff. Like all of that is just kind of tacked on and doesn't really help the job identity. It just helps it fit into this whole 2-minute meta that we have. So that's a little preview of how some of that video is going to be going, because I do think that of the jobs in the role, Dancer has the best identity right now. Bard's kind of waffling between its old identity and its new, and it's moved further and further from its old, but not really fully realized the new one yet. And Machinist, I think its core idea is good, but it needs a lot of kind of twisting and turning to make it feel better. All three of the phys range play incredibly different. It's just a matter of they've always kind of found a hard time coexisting, if that makes sense. And I'll be exploring that. And also with the new phys range, there's also some identities that we could go back into. Trust me, I'm going to get into a whole thing. Stormblood Machinist. Yeah, I've got a lot to go through with that video. But that is actually a video I'm working on as well. I would like to have that out along with a Raid Retro this week. And I know the Raid Retro hasn't made it out in the past couple weeks. But like I said, I've been getting ready to move. And I've been focusing on some other sponsored activations and stuff like that. And putting time into other things. So I've been a little bit behind schedule on that. But still working on it all the same. So, yeah, please look forward to it. I have much more to say on it. But like that should give you an idea of where that discussion is eventually going. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi. Hope you're doing all right and had a great Thanksgiving. You too. So my question is in regard to your trophy hunting and complete playthroughs of various games. What's your PlayStation trophy level at, and how many platinums do you currently have? I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, dude. I'd have to look. I mean, I can name some other random games I have platinumed. I have every mainline Final Fantasy game and its spin-offs except for Crisis Core platinumed. So that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 PlayStation remake on 2 different platforms and Rebirth, so that's 4. Then 8, 9, 10, and 10-2 both, so that's 2 more. Zodiac Age, that's 12. Tactics is another one, just recently added that to the list. 13, 13-2, 13-3. And then 14 on both PS4 and PS5, I have the Platinum Trophy for. 15, 16, and then going back to some other ones, I think I have the Platinum for Demon Souls Remaster. I think I have the Platinum for Bloodborne. I have the Platinum for like BioShock Infinite. I have the Platinum for Devil May Cry 5. I have... I'm sure there's definitely more. I'm just having a hard time remembering. But I don't know the exact number. I just, it's not something I've committed to memory. So unfortunately, I can't provide any more insight than that. But I think that gives you a decent enough idea of where I'm at. I bounce back and forth between PlayStation and PC. Like, I have Crisis Core 100%ed on PC. I don't have 100%ed on PlayStation. But for my Platinum series, I need to get it on PlayStation as well. So that's going to be something that has to get done at some point. But yeah, I just don't know. It's not like I'm not super ingrained in like my platinums and like how much I do it. I just like to aim to get as much out of every game that I buy as possible. And getting platinums at 100% is, you know, in that vein. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. I hope your day finds you well and that you've had a good Thanksgiving. You too. As for the BGM question from last week, you suddenly changed the BGM and feel to me like something was missing. I know, right? It's like super ingrained with me. As much as I anticipate finding out what the 8.0 job changes entail, I can't help but fear for however good the changes might be at cap. I'm more worried about the lower level experience. Yep, I think that is a perfectly reasonable thing to be considered with. If it will feel better when leveling them or being synced down, and if the job fantasy will still feel represented. I was wondering if you think the mobile version has some good examples of abilities that could be gotten earlier, just fundamentally plays too different. Do you think it could be too overwhelming for new players? Okay, so here's the problem with the question. Your concern is a completely valid one, shared amongst many people, I'm willing to say. The low level experience being so much less fulfilling than the high level experience. I mean, it's been a long-term discussion. Like, this is far from the first time we're having it. It's far from the last time we'll have it, most likely. The problem with using 14 mobile as the reference point is that the max level in that game is 50. So when you're trying to compare low level versus max level, you're not actually making that comparison. You're comparing max level now versus max level in a completely different game. We don't know if in 14 mobile, as they update, if job identity is still going to feel represented. We have no idea what job changes in an expansion would even look like in 14 mobile. We have no frame of reference for how they would be incorporated. And a lot of the skills in 14 mobile are either not even from Final Fantasy 14, like entirely, or are already derivative of things like Shadowbringers and Endwalker skills. So what do they even do to add skills? And the amount of hotbar space over there is in a way even more limited because it has to fit around where like your thumb is, or in the case of a controller, like using the controller settings, whatever. Like I guess with the controller support, it opens it up a bit, but they need it to be functional on mobile as if you were just playing with your thumbs and not be like, well, we have a controller now, so if you're playing with your thumbs, you're an idiot. Like that can't be how it works. It just doesn't make sense. I think that a lot of it is going to come down to transforming skills as we level up. I know that it's a little bit of a lame practice that makes it so that when you're leveling up, it's sometimes not as exciting, but it also just works really well. Some examples of that, I do think Summoner is actually a good example of that working, because when you start, you just have your little tiny carbuncles, and you get to the higher levels and you get the big demi summons. So you kind of get that good feeling of progression, even if it doesn't fundamentally change your rotation. The problem is how busy does the low level rotation have to be to allow you to achieve the job identity in the first place. Like I was just talking about with Dancer, I feel like Dancer with the Simon Says mini game, with Dance Partner, and their channeled skills, I feel like a lot of that feels very unique to Dancer, more so than the other Fizz range, the way that they're incorporated into the job. And so, but do you achieve that at every level? And if so, how do you make the higher levels more satisfying? Just getting a fancier looking skill that hits harder actually feel like you're unlocking something new and exciting, but you probably still need capstone skills that either alter the way that you consider the order of your skills, even if just in a minor way, or fundamentally unlock something for the job that just feels whole. I think a great example of that, looking over at WoW, would be when Metamorphosis was added to demo locks. Because at that point, you really weren't your actual class until you got to Metamorphosis. That was what made you actually become whole. The rest of the bits worked, and the job identity of mostly focusing on pets and your demons still kind of worked, but it really, like, the job fantasy feels fully complete upon getting to Metamorphosis. So are we okay with that, with like a big part of the job identity coming with a capstone skill? Or do we really feel like they all need to be available? Or do you just need to get the point across at the low level? I don't think anyone's going to completely agree with each other in this. I think that there's just a lot of different ways the preference of how that plays out would go. But those are all questions that we have to answer. And I don't think we can use the mobile game. If anything, you use the mobile game to actually look at what their identities are and not achieving them at different level ranges. Like Bard has a rhythm game as part of its kit in mobile. Like you literally have to press your song action at specific times during your song's activation in order to get the best effect out of them. And so, you know, is that something we want? But then that kind of starts to feel like Dancer, you know, like you press the song and then you gotta, you know, when the procs start coming up, you gotta tap, tap, tap. Like, I guess that's to the song, but when the dancer want to do tap, 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 but a bard's playing a music and a dancer's dancing to music, and are those things not in tandem? But we don't want them to be too... You see where I'm going with it? Like, all of a sudden, what seems like a really great and unique idea is now something that fundamentally creates a very similar feel to what another one of the Fizz range has. So yeah, it's tough. I'm not going to pretend to have the answers. There's going to be a lot of discussion back and forth, a lot of disagreement, and we won't really know anything for quite some time still. So at this point, it's just a matter of being open-minded and just kind of accepting that we are still so in the dark that making any sort of real prediction or trying to use anything as a basis is really just a half measure to try to support things that we want more out of the game. And that's fine, as long as people understand and, you know, civilly maintain the discussion around it, which, let's be honest, is not often. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. I was wondering one day how open field content could be made exciting, and then realized that open field plus limited jobs could recreate a field exploration zone feeling if they remade both to accompany this. A couple of harder fate bosses, people who give blue mage spells, or just having spells be able to be bought with bicolored gemstones. This thought also revealed that a limited job with consumable actions would be great. Do you think these would be great ideas? You create a very big problem by doing what you've suggested. You are effectively... So, okay, this is kind of the conundrum of limited jobs as a whole, so it's not your fault. When you create a limited job, you have to decide one of two things. Do we want to create content only this job can do, or do we want this job to be able to do the content that already exists differently? By creating an entire field exploration zone that is exclusive to the limited job, you already have what I would consider not like a mainstream hyper popular mode in that of field exploration. Don't get me wrong, it's popular, but the reasons it's popular aren't in line with the reasons why someone would play a limited job. People like Bozia because they can level in it and it's got some pretty casual raids that they can enjoy, and it gives them a good sense of progression and sense of fun, or at the very least, even if they're not like huge fans of it, at least they're getting leveling out of it, right? And that's usually good enough for a lot of people to feel motivated to do it. Or you're getting something like Eureka, where it's a very enclosed experience, but the way that everything interacts with the job you already like playing can allow you to explore the things that something you already like about the game, your job of choice, and build upon that. Like, oh, how do these certain actions work with this job? You know, what's the best action? You know, what feels best? You know, maybe I want to try a different job. If you were to, let's say, put Blue Mage in there and tie every single thing to Blue Mage, there's effectively always only kind of one answer, because Blue Mage itself is kind of like a puzzle job in a sense, where you would still need like specific spells for specific bosses, and that would be kind of the largely encouraged gameplay loop. And I think that's too many resources to throw into it. I would prefer for limited job related stuff to not focus on open field, or to accept that they just kind of break the existing open fields as they are. Like low level fates have a huge problem with going back and doing anything, because Blue Mage is there and can obliterate all of them. And I think we have to be okay in accepting that with the older things, and then just accept the newer things are the things where we're really going to see the majority of change, as long as the things in general are okay and rewarding. I'm more of a fan in terms of limited job stuff of reworking things that exist. I've always said allowing Blue Mage to do its own version of Palace of the Dead, for example, where they start with only water cannon and they have to learn all of their spells as they go throughout. Like certain enemies can teach them certain skills and then they can use those skills to progress up the floors. And then you can only keep a certain loadout. So you may have to decide to drop a spell to learn another spell. And then the palms can have some things to do with that. Or maybe you can, as part of your upgrade process while climbing, maybe opening a silver chest can have a chance to give you an ability satchel, which actually expands the amount of total abilities that you can have set at any given time. Like, I'd rather see things like that if we're looking for limited job content, which I know again wasn't the point. You're speaking more about specifically open world content or field content, as you've called it. But I guess I'm just kind of tacking that on at the same time, in the regards of, I think that's probably in my opinion, the better way of utilizing limited jobs as opposed to what was suggested. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Haps. Hi. I was leveling an alt because of boredom between patches. Got the level 50 job quest. Wondered why the 45 and 50 job quest gave item level 55 armor and then why the level 50 job quest gave item level 90. So that is something that was done after the fact. So basically, when they first came out, they all gave item level 55 stuff, and that was your kind of basic entry point into getting into level 50. Now, that's because, you would take that and then, go get Darklight gear for tomestones, and then, you would grab the cap tomestone gear eventually, or grab the raid gear, grab the hard mode trial gear, and then 2.1, the extreme trial gear, etc., etc. However, when we moved on to Heaven's Ward, they just, obviously, that level range, that item level building doesn't need to happen anymore. The player just realistically wants to get to the next expansion. So they retroactively added this item level 90 stuff, which before was obtainable, but just wasn't obtainable through this. And they just stuck it in there to give players that instant bump up. Very similarly, they added like higher level accessories and armors to the actual main story quests afterwards. And that's all just kind of an after the fact thing that they did to make getting through A Realm Reborn and getting to the next expansion a more fluid experience. Oh boy, we got a lot of text here. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hoi hoi, Mr. Happy. Hi, hope you're doing well. You too. Recently, I've been super bored with healing in 14, but thinking of ways to make healing more engaging. So the idea me and some friends have come up with would be a new debuff called Heal Absorb, and I want to air the idea to get your thoughts on it. I'm not big on questions like this. And I know I explain why a lot, but it's because there's no value in me validating an idea because there's nothing wrong inherently with having ideas and thinking if they should be one way or the other. I don't have any impact on what they do. And even if I think it's a great idea, it doesn't really change anything. It doesn't give it any more traction. They're not like, well, Mr. Happy likes it, so let's add it into the game. They don't care about all that. So I don't like to super validate these things because effectively it's a, what do you think? And it's like any idea in theory can work if it works, as long as you make it make sense within the confines of how Final Fantasy XIV itself already works. And Heal Absorb is a thing that has existed in other RPGs. Thus, in theory, it could work in Final Fantasy XIV. So there's no like good idea, bad idea. It's an idea, and its implementation can be good or bad. There's a lot of text here to describe it. I know how Heal Absorb works. It's utilized in several other RPGs as well. I cannot bring them an idea at FanFest and then go, that's just not how it works. They already know what they're doing. B, they're not looking for one person to be like, well, I got this comment that I really liked and I thought, could you do that? Because the answer is yes. Can they? Yes. Will they? They'll never promise it. Should they? Who knows if the implementation is good. Again, there's just a lot of sausage. You good over there? There's just a lot of, this is why like just my validation doesn't have an inherent value, which is why it's not that I don't like validating what ideas that I think are cool. But if it ends with an expectation that because I think it's cool, it's more likely to happen, that's generally and genuinely not how it works. So I usually shut things like this down. Like, I already said, could Heal Absorb work? Sure. Does it make sense? You can make it make sense. There's really nothing more I can add to it, even through reading everything here. So it just doesn't, there's not really a discussion to be had other than this discussion we're having right now, clarifying that. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hi. First time question here. Welcome. Wanted to jump in on last week's Tankbuster mini discussion. Personally, I find it funny how Monster Hunter Wilds collab has more interesting tank exclusive mechanic than a simple swap because next hit kills you. We're getting an FF most of the time. This has prompted the question. I'm trying to remember what... Isn't it just like... Well, so here's the thing. If I'm remembering correctly, it's the max HP reduction, right? So the way that works is actually... It's different than the way it works in 14, but it's not wholly undifferent than stuff we already have in the game. Effectively, if I'm recalling correctly, if you are Omega's primary target and you get the HP reduction debuff, you can only be removed when you are no longer Omega's main target. We have that. I mean, we've had that in the game since Ultima Weapon, where, you get 5 stacks and you instantly die. I mean, it's functionally very similar. Omega himself also has a max HP reduction mechanic, not in top. In top, it's used on everybody. It's not used on just the tank. But the debuff that everyone used to give it to the tank because they were best equipped to deal with the follow-up AoE that came afterwards with the not the mustard bomb, whatever the name of the tether AoE was. That he would do that too. So yeah, again, this is something we already have in Final Fantasy XIV. And it reduces players' max HP value on hit. We have a lot of things that reduce that. We've had separation stacks. We've had Omega itself. We've had plenty of that stuff. I will say they've moved away from doing it a lot. And I think recently, even in a video, said that looking back at old things like that, they should be looking at like multi-hit or stacking debuffs that don't just hit tank gets hit by Buster, swap. Instead of like, you could do it on 2 stacks or you could do it on 3 stacks as long as you do it before 5 stacks. Or, then dynamically, how does that work in a fight? And then how does recovery work in a fight if you lose the tank that's going to be getting swapped too? Or, are the tanks even paying enough attention to do the swap, etc., etc. So, but we have this already. This is not something that is new. That is taken from Omega that already exists. It's just implemented in a bit differently of a way. Hashtag Montag mit Herrn Freulich. I'm going to assume that means what I think it means and not something really bad. And I apologize for the pronunciation. How you doing, my guy? Hello. Longtime viewer. Welcome. Since the Realm War beta, first question. I always love first questions. Welcome. I have 2 questions. Sure. Look like they're pretty quick. Players nowadays blast through old content like Savages and Extremes. I get it. They're quick to do it. Max level new players have the option to get duties cleared without issue, although I feel like new players can't learn anything about reading mechanics or actually being an Extreme or Savage fight. Dungeons and a few normal mode trials are still too easy and the learning curve is too low. Do you think that redesigning old content with the new content philosophy in mind is a good way to encourage people to clear them synced? That won't encourage people to clear it synced any more than it does now. The bottom line is you can still unsync it. And that's... People always take the path of least resistance. You do get people who do what we call low item level runs, where you equip a very specific set of armor, and then you can actually go into these old fights and challenge them. And while it's not exactly the same, it's still similar enough to how it was like back in the day that it's a valuable experience. I'll say I've done a bunch of low item level. It's actually one of my favorite things to do when I am going to be doing raiding of any kind. So I'm a huge fan of it. It's just that the path of least resistance is always going to be the single most important thing. And I don't think it's worth all this effort. It just won't encourage people the way you think it will. Also, 2, melee versus when. The main reason for lack of versus is job identity is really more of a thing. And I really don't think there's much value in determining which jobs you go. It's literally, at this point, on a fight-to-fight basis, what job you actually want to play if you're capable of playing any or all of them within a tier, within your role. So I've been avoiding it, and I've been focusing more on general discussions. The versus stuff will probably return in 8.x after we get job identity changes, because in theory, job identity changes mean that the differences in comparing all of them as a much more valuable prospect than it is now, where they all kind of play differently, but I can't reasonably say one is better than the other unless I'm saying it in specific circumstances, right? Like Viper being insane in like AoE scenarios, or just Viper ended up being super goated in the most recent tier, for example. It's not like Dragoon was bad, but I would just be like, well, in the case that you get this, Viper's the best, but in the case you get this, it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like, it just becomes more of an outline of the jobs and less of a comparisons of strengths and weaknesses like it used to be. So I'm really kind of waiting for there to be more difference between the jobs, or hoping that 8.0 achieves that, and then it makes the versus a more valuable prospect. Versus right now, I'd rather focus on the game's entire design as a whole with my videos and use that kind of as my platform to encourage updates and changes instead of just talking about what's already there as much. Hashtag Mondays with Senor Happy. Hey, hi. People keep bringing up Valgar Amanda's Mountain Fire as revolutionary for Tankbusters, but why is that? From a tank's perspective, it's just simply stand in the tower with cooldowns. I get that it fulfills the power fantasies tanks are looking for, but so does Susano EX's transition that wasn't seen as revolutionary. No, people love Susano EX's transition. Tanks loved that because it's what it is it's non-traditional. The big thing with the Tankbuster is that it is not as simple as stand in it with cooldowns. Depending on how you do it, it's intended that you'll tank swap every single one and pay attention to the direction of Valagar Manda and make sure that you have cooldowns spread out throughout the whole thing. Now, this is actually where I think something like tank invulns becomes an important part of the discussion, because it changes the dynamic of encounters like this and mechanics like this in such a way that I don't think is particularly good for us to have in Final Fantasy XIV. I've been super anti-Tankbuster or anti-tank invuln, like as a player, for a pretty long time now. I just feel like more often than not, it's actually just making things less interesting as a whole. And maybe that's just me, but I feel like they could be a lot more creative with a lot of things they do in encounters if we just didn't have tank invulns in the game. Like, it just feels like they're just used as shortcuts to get around the things that would mildly inconvenience us from just not having to use our brains in any capacity. I mean, I guess maybe some people really like that, but I'm not the biggest fan, and I would prefer us to get some form of change on that front as opposed to what we have now. But, I mean, the bottom line is the bar is pretty low for what we consider a great thing for tanks to get. And at this point, it's literally anything that isn't just red circle appears around tank and the tank swap. And even if there is something that is tank involved, it's also generally considered better for, what's it called? It's generally considered better if the tank just has to really think about where they're moving and when they're using their defensive skills. If you can get both of those things consistently involved on your tanks, that goes a long way into fulfilling a good amount of power fantasy for the role as a whole. And I guess it's just a matter of, will they be able to achieve that? And no one knows. We're just kind of in the wait and see moments now. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, Happy. Hi. Long time since I asked a question. Hey, can take a break whenever you want. I'm recently playing through the story again on an alt. I'm an Endwalker. I was wondering when in your Ultima Thule. Wait, when you're in Ultima Thule, I was wondering if 8.0 might have predicted there, because there's a point. I have no idea what you're trying to. I'm going to skip this. I have no idea what they're trying to ask. I'm not going to embarrass them. Hello, hashtag Mondays, Mr. Happy. Hello before the hashtag. We got an overachiever here. Considering the possibility of having a new starting point, a promised future focus on job identity, having reached a symbolic milestone of level 100, we will continue to level jobs further. Will devs design an alternate form of progression? Okay, I've said this before. Let me put it this way. No matter what they do, it will feel like the equivalent of gaining 10 levels in expansion. Let's say they introduced master points. I'm just trying to make up some. I guess not entirely made up. That's derived a little bit from 11. They have merit points limit. They have all sorts. Let's say they create master points, and in the next expansion we can earn up to 10 master points. And for 2 master points, we can select a skill to unlock. There's 5 skills, and at the end of it, we'll have all 5 skills. Now, that changes because we now have power over which skills that we take and when. So we may want more AoE early. Maybe we want our big 2-minute. And there's no real bad choice because it's not like it's going to really affect the content and your ability to do it, right? But effectively, you will start the MSQ with no master points, and you'll end the MSQ with 10. So, most people consider 99 symbolic in 11. Or I'm sorry, not in 11, but in Final Fantasy as a whole. In 11, it's 99. But a lot of people do consider 99 to be the more symbolic number, because I think like Final Fantasy 8 is the main game where it goes up to 100 and not 99. I'm sure there are others, but like off the top of my head, that's the big one. And yeah, it kind of just doesn't matter. It's a completely irrelevant thing. We will get more skills. We will get skills pruned. We will get skills reworked. and we will get more levels, and we will go up in power. We're not going to stop going up in power, and they're not going to completely cut out the amount of time investment a player can get out of the game, or they can get out of a player, of leveling 21 different jobs. They're also not going to try to create a huge barrier where a player who grinds out alternate progression for like weeks on end when the expansion comes out is miles ahead of someone who has also cleared the story in any other way than the potential difference in item level they might have. So no matter what, that it's gonna be something like that. And looking at the rest of your comment here, which focuses on things being more like phantom jobs, that doesn't ultimately change the way that a new expansion would launch or how we would get a new progression system in any way. It doesn't affect the lower levels. The only thing that affects the lower levels and the way that we play is fundamentally how the game is designed. And we covered this in that other question already. There's a whole lot of give and take when it comes to that, and there's no one solution that actually resolves everything. So it's far too complex of a topic for us to really hit every single point accurately without missing something. But I think my point's kind of made both in my answer to the previous question and in how I'm addressing this one. All right, and that's going to be the last question. There was one other question that I didn't understand what they were actually asking me. And I didn't want to include it because I feel like there might be a language barrier between, like English might not be their first language, for example. So I left it out entirely. I apologize if you're the person who knows that your question was not answered this week. I didn't understand precisely what was being asked, both through the punctuation and the actual context of the text in the question. So apologies for that. But if you can find a way to put it in different words, or find a way to express it in a way that I do understand, and I understand that's not an easy thing to do, but like that was the struggle I was having with it. If you're the person who is aware that it was your question. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Be sure to ask your questions in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to tune in for December, and be sure to also check out Cook Unity. Again, if you're in the US and you want to save some food on some pre-prepared meals, too busy, whatever the reason may be, give it a look. And every single person who signs up supports the channel, and if you stay subscribed for up to 4 weeks, it also supports the channel. You obviously have no obligation to do so, but I figured 50% off a bunch of food is normally a deal people like, so I might as well tell you guys about it if you're in the US. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. A bunch of people wished me great Thanksgiving there. I honestly completely forgot to do that at the start of the video. And yeah, I'll see you for next week's episode, where we will be post live letter. There will be a live letter this week. I will have an overview on it. We will have a State of the Realm on it this week. And I am planning, like I said, 1 or 2 other videos if I get them done. Like I said, I'm in the process of doing some moving stuff as well. So my schedule is very, very fluid right now. It's very much as I can actually get around to things. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, take care.